To Michael Brandon.
Looking good. Now, Michael, of course, became an international star virtually overnight thanks to the 80s crime drama Dempsey and Makepeace, where he met his, Mrs. Glynis Barber. The New Yorker has been based in Britain, I think, just about ever since, hasn't it? Since then?
What's that?
They're based over here in the UK most of the time.
Me?
Yeah.
Here?
Yeah.
I'm British.
Yeah. He starred in everything from episodes of Doctor Who, Mr. Selfridge to Death in Paradise. He's currently wowing audiences in a really interesting play, The Long Road South. Relatively new drama, but set in suburban America during the Civil Rights Movement, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
You opened last week, I think, on what would have been Michael Luther King's...
Actually, it was, by coincidence, Martin Luther King's birthday.
Yeah, it would have been his 87th, thanks for that description.
Yeah.
So what's the story of the play, then?
Well, the story is set, like, mid-60s, Indiana, Midwest. This is this Price family, my wife and daughter, and Imogen Stubbs and Lydia Perkins. And this couple is working their way trying to get to Alabama and join the peace movement. And they've got to go through us first to get there. And it's about people's aspiring dreams meeting people's dreams who probably crashed. And it's all tied up in discovering whether there is racism or not, and all those issues and what it takes to be free or even to get to freedom.
Your character is fairly controlling and old-fashioned looking, isn't he, Jake?
Well, I read in the paper I was bossy and compelling. Actually, he's the alpha. He's the
he's the sort of Donald Trump figure. We'll get on to him a little later.
Well, yeah. And you know, and it's like, Imogen plays a wonderful drunk wife, you know, trying to survive this whole thing. I've got a Lolita kind of daughter who's kind of fallen for this guy who wants to head south, and he's got his woman, and you know, there's all these. The thing about this play, which is different than any other play, I think, is that if any of the characters tell their story, it's different. It's a different play.
It's all the perception.
That, you know, because sometimes, you know, everybody's got a clear run of what it's about. But this is really bam. And it's like everybody's got a different story, and they all, you know, till the end.
What I find fascinating is it really isn't that long ago. And
No.
yet it was such a different world and such different attitudes. Do you remember any of it as a young lad yourself?
Well, see, I grew up in Brooklyn, so there were different neighborhoods.
It's a racial melting pot anyway.
Yeah,
really.
but, you know, the line was you had, you know, your black neighborhood, your white neighborhood, your Puerto Rican neighborhood, you know. It was like people, there was Italian, Irish, everything was there. And if you crossed the line, you could get in trouble. You know, you knew what the lines were, you know what I mean? But it melded, and everybody was friends in school or whatever, and then, you know, you did whatever you did. To find out that people weren't allowed to eat off the same plate, ride in a bus, go into a restaurant, vote, you know, that was another world. And that world was, you know, still in our country.
It's worth remembering. I mean, you know, it's a different story here, but I mean, I can still remember No Blacks, No Dogs, No Irish on pubs when I was a very little boy. I know David wants to get in, but we should say, first of all, it's on at the King's Head Theatre in Italy, which is a fantastic venue. I think I last saw you there with Steve.
And there's
First.
only 10 more shows.
Saturday week it finishes.
Huh? Okay.
Saturday week. And you have a tattoo every night, but last night's was different. Is that right?
Ooh, you've got people. Yeah, I wear, because this guy, I felt, it was 65, and I felt that early on, he probably World War II would have been, since he was in the Midwest, would have joined the Navy to get out and see the world a bit. So I had one of those old 50s anchors. But what I did last night was I put on an eagle for Glenn Fry.
Did you know Glenn? Did you?
Yeah. I did a movie in '77 called FM. And one of the producers was Irving Azoff, who was the manager of the Eagles, and the opening song of the soundtrack was me racing to the radio station to beat the track of Life in the Fast Lane. So, being chased by police, you know, eating donuts, I go by in a Porsche, wow! And you know, getting there, and just as it comes off, and it goes, you know, and now more sounds. This is Q Sky Radio, and I put on another track, you know, and that was the kind of game. Cleveland Little was playing the other guy. And
he was one of the first rock stars I ever interviewed, and an absolute gentleman. I mean, considering how famous and successful he was, very nice, down-to-earth guy.
They were great guys. Timmy Schmidt I was closest with at the time, and what happened was I was going for a terrible divorce at the time, and I left with Jimmy Buffett because there was a rock and roll movie. So I went to Aspen, and we're in Aspen, and I'm really, really down. You're really, you know, you're mushed. You know what I mean? You're just crushed down in the whole thing, and I see this girl who was so beautiful that it was like unbelievable. She was the most beautiful, you know. She was part of the Aspen 10. I didn't know what that was yet. Anyway, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to speak. I was out of practice. I was like, but my body walked up, you know, like when you go to your first dance, you know, do you make me dance? No. You know, anyway, I walked up and I'm there. I don't know what to do. I didn't know what to say, and like, you know, the eyes were like melting, you know. And it was like, and all of a sudden, the Eagles walked by, Glenn and Timmy, and they go, "We're going to Jack Nicholson's house. It's New Year's. Are you coming?" Yeah, okay. Would you like to come? I mean, duh. You know? So that was New Year's with Chicago, the Eagles, Boz Scaggs, Joe Walsh, Artie Garfunkel. Wow. It was amazing, and there I was. But, you know,
Did you get the
it
girl?
felt better, though. It did feel better than it could have been.
Did you get the girl?
Can't tell you.
No, you get Tracy.
I did get the girl, and I'm married to her now.
Now, you've got to go to Tracy Ullman. You're going to turn up in the Tracy Ullman show, I believe. Is that
Yes.
In a week or two,
What a treat. She is so great.
We've missed her because you've had her. Well, you've been here, but she's been out in America now for the last 30 years.
Well, we met when I did Jerry Springer the Opera, you know, and because her husband produced the show, and we just hit it. And so she called and said, "You want to do this with me?" Yes. Yes. And so Monday night is...
But it's not marriage.
Out.
Well,
so what's the fundamental thing? The term marriage? Is that what people are
so.
objecting?
And the history of marriage, where women had to
too much
obey.
terminology, mixing up everything. And marriage used to be a romantic gesture. That's why I did it. I wanted to give something, you know, it's a special thing, and you get married, and that's us, and we're married. You know, I've been trying to get her to treat me civilly ever since. But, you know.
Now then, Mike, it's over to you for the headlines, and where are you going to start?
Okay,
So I can
the
see Donald Trump's hair from here, so I know he's still to come.
Well, it's cops. Why did you give me cops? Anyway, volunteer cops, new powers. Volunteer cops, new powers. The thin blue part-timers. It's set to give fines and hold crimes. Anyway, thousands of unpaid police volunteers are to be given powers to detain crime suspects or slap them with an on-spot fine.
Right.
So it's kind of sounds like monitors.
Yeah. I mean, when this story first rose its head, gosh, must have been about 4 or 5 months ago, it was against a backdrop of massive cuts that were coming towards the police across the country, talk of 15,000, 20,000 officers to go. The police were spared that in George Osborne's last budget, so they've been sort of told their numbers are safe because of the terror threats, amongst other things. So it's quite curious. I mean, we've had things like vigilante groups going after paedophiles, and actually, against all my sort of better instincts, I have to say some of them seem to be doing quite a good job of staying within the law, finding people who use websites to groom girls. And some of the volunteers they're looking for are IT specialists, people who work within IT who might be prepared to give up their time, perhaps to help on that kind of work. So, I mean, if you're a...
Are these going to be front line?
Well, if you're going out and stopping criminals, you're on the street,
And uniformed?
Yes, it's uniformed, yeah.
Well, if they're trained properly, I think possibly. Otherwise, you get people who want to be in a power position. You know, like certain parking wardens, you may have had an instance somewhere along the line, who have a little bit of power and, all of a sudden they want to hold you in a place. And, it's like my father said to me, you got nothing to worry about if you don't commit a crime. Yeah. But that's not true because things,
But
to get fudgy.
But I think maybe this is a good thing for people who have civic pride, who want to, put something back. And
but we already have the PCSOs, which they're trying to phase down.
Yeah.
So I can't quite make head nor tail of it myself. But,
a presence on the street has always been a good thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Everybody believes that.
Yeah.
You know, you're there, you feel more secure, and if something happens, if people are properly trained, can deal with the situation.
Yeah.
You know?
Although I keep thinking, if you're properly trained, then really you should be paid, shouldn't you? And then become a formal police officer.
Yes.
Anyway. OK, we'll leave that
go
one.
back to why don't we have more cops then?
Yeah. Next one, please.
The next one.
Yeah.
The next one is in the Mirror. Junior doctors postpone huge 48-hour strike. Next week's 48-hour junior doctor strike has been called off. The move comes as talks continued yesterday between the British Medical Association and the government over new contracts.
Okay. You got any inside track on this,
well,
David?
I think it's a huge relief. I think it means they're making some progress. I think it's going to be over this.
Well, they called off the last one at the beginning of December.
They did.
As they went into arbitration. And then we start the new year by hearing that arbitration, 30-odd days of arbitration got them nowhere.
Yes. I think the sticking point, from what I understand, is this definition of normal working hours from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m., which is not normal working hours. So that has to move. I think the more worrying strike is the next one, which is much more worrying, which is, I think, February 10th.
Yeah, with the end of A&E
which
cover.
will be all out, and that includes accident and emergency services. And I don't think people realise the implication that would have.
It may be, I don't know.
Care.
It may be they may just defer the strike they're cancelling from the 20th and push that forward, perhaps, and I'm just guessing.
But, that, for me, is a nuclear option, because if you have nowhere else to go as a group of doctors. If you say it's an all-out strike, A&E is off, and, people will die.
Yeah. Well, I was in an automobile crash in California, and there was a doctor strike because of the malpractice suits, so they all went on strike. And I had crashed into a tree, and I was sitting in the car with my head open. There happened to be a doctor on strike who stopped, came running up, and held my head together till an ambulance did arrive. Somebody got me to a hospital. He saved my life. And the thing is, I think if there's doctors just not taking care of people, if there is a certain level of care afforded to emergency, then, you can fight for your rights, but I think negotiation is best.
Hear to that. Hear to that. OK, let's move on to your next one. The ultimate negotiator, Donald Trump.
OK.
We'll negotiate as long as you do everything his way.
Well, it shows you can buy a country.
Even using your dad's money.
Yeah, I know. See, I'm afraid, because my brother may vote for this guy, I mean, we differ on everything, but he says things that are outrageous and have no basis, but what people would like to hear or think that would be the answer to the problem. Now, talking to Palin as a possible...
So this is the news story. He's got Sarah Palin has given her backing to his campaign.
Yeah.
Woo!
Oh, my God. Well, this could be the best news for Hillary Clinton. What can I say?
Well, she's, I think, 5-4 on now, I think, favourite. So maybe it is going to be the best news for Hillary. To the Republicans, are they not waking up to this, that they could be playing into the opposition's hands?
Well, that's what happens. I mean, they try and save the big bag of dirt for last, right? We don't know what surprise
there's quite an interesting article.
Hillary is really a man, and is living in a civil...
You've got to remember, their system is such that they've got to secure the nomination first. So by bringing Palin on may well be a way to get the Republican nomination, so that she comes on and they all go, yeah, great, and Trump then becomes the nomination, at which point you've done Palin.
Does he not? Because I would have associated Palin immediately with sort of Trumponomics. So there's this sort of extreme right-wing, bigoted, ill-founded nonsense. And then actually, if he really wanted to secure the Republican nomination, he'd be looking to move more into the centre ground and actually addressing people who can, string a sentence together.
I don't think so, because he's got to get Middle America on side.
And they love Palin.
They love all that.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, because you would think, just let the guys who think they can do the job show up in Wyoming during this week and let them come up with the best guy.
Yeah.
And it's like there are people who are really smart businessmen, are together socially, and are able to present themselves and the situation and understand the people. And then you got this. You know,
But he does, as you said, he hijacks all the headlines. I mean, we haven't had a look in, certainly in the popular press, we haven't seen a picture of Hillary Clinton for months, if not years. I mean, she doesn't get
because he's more interesting to watch.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. You know, that's the scary part about it. But that's, you know, who would have believed that Ronald Reagan would have become president of America? You know what I mean?
I'm still getting over that one, if I'm honest.
He actually found it to be a good president.
He was a better president than he was an actor, but that's not really saying much. A couple of quick ones from you. What else we got?
Okay. I don't know. Diesel diddlers. This is in the Sun. Nearly all car models exceed pollution levels. Well, we kind of knew that was coming, right? Nearly every diesel car model exceeds pollution limits, a report shows, in echoes of the Volkswagen emissions scandal. So...
Was this report paid for by Volkswagen?
No. This is
independent,
this is an independent one.
Yeah, because it lists cars that are, there's Jeep, Subaru, Nissan, and Kia. And,
So
you know...
they're
so-
all at it, or at least many of them are.
You know,
They all pass the laboratory test, fail the real-world test. I mean, there's some other models and manufacturers that get dragged in as well. I mean, VW copped a lot of flack, lost a lot of business for fiddling their figures, or fiddling the test. I mean, I'm one of the suckers who bought a diesel because I was told that diesels were cleaner than petrol. So now I have a car that nobody wants.
In '84, I bought a diesel, and because the better mileage and it was safer and all that kind of stuff. I sold it before I found that, you know, then everything changed around. But in America, diesel was an unrefined fuel. It was cheap.
But it is an unrefined fuel.
But here, it became more expensive because they can make more money on it. If you
Immediately
were to get more mileage, they're going to charge you more for it. You know, do we believe any of this?
No.
Well, no, I believe the cars fail the test. I really do. It's just what are we going to do about it? That's the
Buy petrol.
And last one from you, which is a nice spacey story.
This here is about, in the Daily Mail, heavenly, look up and you see 5 planets. So Venus, Saturn, Mars, Mercury, and Jupiter are all going to be visible in the sky tonight in a rare heavenly spectacle where they're coming together to talk about us.
To be fair, actually, the good news...
Saying, what's going on with this planet down there? You know, but anyway, this is going to...
Early risers, I believe the very best time is going to be 6:45 tomorrow morning. So just as the dark is coming to an end, or near as know it. So it might be worth having a look.
Apparently quite easy to spot, because all you have to look for is
They're
the
in a
moon,
line.
and then it's a diagonal down
Yeah.
from the moon, and they're more or less all on that diagonal, with Mercury being the lowest on the horizon.
Oh, listen to her.
When was the last time it happened, Dan?
10 years ago.
Oh, very good. Dan.
Oh, I love a newspaper reviewer that reviews the paper.
Using
45.
Griggs.
There you go.
They still got a lot of them on Celebrity Get Me Out of Here because they're always putting people in those tanks.
That's
with
why
them.
there are none left.
Different species.
Yeah.
Different
Oh, are
species.
they really?
I think you spend your time with them while they're alive, and you pay your respects while they're alive, you know. And like I went to visit a friend of mine who lost my closest friend very recently. I lost a lot of people this year, and I spent 10 days with him. That was my plan. Went into Los Angeles, and then I came back. And when he passed away, I didn't go back for the funeral. I would love to have gone, but you know, I'd been there. I
In many ways.
Well, in New York, you know, back years ago, you know, you say good morning to someone and they go, "What did you say?" You know, you get cured. You know what I mean? Whoa, you know, you don't want to, you know, people's space is a different thing. But I think, you know, yeah, of course, because you don't want to let that one get away if that's the one.
That's the one, but
if it's
that's the sort of
backed up,
romantic...
Let's put it this way. If you pay more for an item, then there should be more of a backup for that item, and you should be able to return it to that company and get it replaced.
Yeah, maybe.
And I found that with some good companies, that if you do that, they take care
Have
of
a
you.
loyalty. You've been
You know.
brainwashed into having a loyalty to the brand.
Yeah, well, that's marketing, you see.
Yeah.
Before I was an actor, I worked in beauty supplies. women's beauty
read
supplies.
this, yeah.
Yeah, and there were like, I think, 18 different hairsprays for women. And the only difference was the label, because it was actually the smell, a little bit of perfume, was the only difference in every formula. But they
Prices
sold
were massive.
massive. you know, it's marketing.
That is the power of marketing, isn't it?
What's curious, okay, so if it's the power of marketing, how come the marketeers don't rinse blokes the same way? I mean, I know you
Do
get...
you care what colour your razor is?
No.
I don't either. I was the last guy walking around for a T-shirt that didn't have a logo.
Oh, I'm so with you. I'm not promoting people's
You know what
stuff
I mean?
for
Really?
free. Yeah.
I do wonder whether there's a difference.
Michael, bless you. Thanks for giving up your time. Always a pleasure to see you again. Love to do this, and best of luck with the play. It's called The Long Road South. It's had excellent reviews. Tells the story of the American civil rights struggle, and it's on only until the 30th of January at London's King's Head Theatre up in Islington. And